Hello everyone and welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Marios and today I will be talking about React Hooks. React Hooks is a new feature introduced in React 16.8 which improves the existing capabilities of function and component. It's really funny that developers went crazy after their release. The main reason of it is that traditionally we have been using class-based components, which were the only way to manage state and side effects, and only a small portion of the code base included function and component. However, this has changed and most recent code bases include only function and component. In this video, I will be showing the most important hooks and try to give you a brief idea on how we can use them. Applications, they have data and often they are not static. This means that at some point in time, the data need to update and the user interface need to update as well. To handle this, React provides us the UseState hook, which we can use to keep track of all the changes performed in our state and also render those changes within our application. This in general provides a good user experience. To demonstrate it, I have an app component which has a span within it with the value of 0, and two buttons with the text increase and decrease. My goal is to set a counter within the state and create two callbacks which will be responsible for increasing and decreasing the value of the counter. I need to initiate the UseState hook, which accepts the initial state, and in my case it will be 0, and returns an array with two arguments within it. The first argument, it will be the state, which I will call counter, and the second argument is a method which we can use to update the counter. I will set it setCounter. I use to set an onIncrease callback. This callback will be responsible for increasing the value of the counter. And I also need to set an onDecrease callback, which will decrease the value of the counter. I'm untouching those callbacks on an click event within the buttons. And I need to update the value of 0, so that includes the value of the counter. If I click increase, the value of the counter increases. If I click decrease, the value of it decreases. The UserReducer hook is also used to manage state. It achieves the same result as the UseState hook. However, it follows a different implementation. The hook expects two arguments, with the first argument to be a function. This function is an implementation of a reducer. The second argument is the initial state of the reducer. A reducer function is executed every time we dispatch an action within our application. An action is an object with the type property. Based on that property, the reducer evaluates the value of it and updates the state accordingly. If you have worked with Redux in the past, it follows the same idea. To demonstrate it, I have the same sample as before. However, now I will try to use the UserReducer hook. At the beginning, I will set the reducer function, which, as we discussed, it has two arguments. The first one will be the state, which I will call counter, and the second one is an action. Within it, I set a switch case, which will be checking the action. And I need to set a few cases. To increase the counter, I need to set an increase case, which is going to increase the counter. The second case is a decrease, which will decrease the counter. I also need to set a default case, which means that if there isn't any match, so that it will return the previous counter. To implement this, I need to call the UserReducer hook within the component. Pass the counter that I created and set an initial state, which is 0. These return an array with 2 arguments within it. The first argument will be the counter, and the second argument will be a dispatch function. As before, I need to set an onIncrease callback, but in this callback I need to dispatch an action with the increase type property. Now, callback, which will dispatch a decrease action, update the value of 0 so that it includes a counter, and the onIncrease and onDecrease callbacks and on click events within those buttons. If I save my code and test it in the browser, an increase updates the counter to has the value of 1 and 2 on the second click, and a decrease the value. The UseRef Hook is used to handle side effects in our application. The most common scenario is when we want to fetch some data from an external resource, which often is an API or a database. The signature of the hook expects 2 arguments. The first argument is a callback function which wraps the side effect logic, and the second argument is a dependency array. The dependency array is responsible to inform the hook when it needs to update. For example, if we pass an empty array, it means that the hook only called once. The UseRef Hook is mainly a replacement of the lifecycle methods traditionally in class-based components. To demonstrate it, I would be manually updating the counter that we have in our state. I would start by initiating the hook, set an empty callback, and the second argument would be an empty array. This means that it will only be called once. Then I will set a set timeout, which will call the onIncrease dispatch action in 3 seconds, and that means that we will see a change in the counter after 3 seconds the application loads. I will reload the page and wait for the change. After 3 seconds, the counter has changed. Using React developers, we don't have so much control on accessing the DOM. Although it's considered to be an undead pattern, there are some cases that we actually need to do it. In that case, we can use the UseRef Hook, which will add a reference to a DOM element. This reference is added to a React element, and it will does the map for us so that we have access to the DOM element. To demonstrate it, I will create a reference to the counter, and I will manually dispatch a side effect which will be updated in the background color of the counter so that it be red. At the beginning, I need to create the and then I need to, before I create the side effects, I need to add a reference to the counter. And now let's create the side effect. This will only be called once. And if I console log the variable, and go in my console, and if I put it on the side so that it's more obvious to you, you see that I get an object with the current property. That property, it has the span element. If I now try to manually change the background color of the span element, and remove the console, you see that, let me reload it again, you see that the color has changed to red. The last hook in my list is the UseMemo Hook. This hook is used to memorize the result of a function. It's mainly used when you have an expensive calculation, and in general you avoid repeating the calculation in every render. In my case, I will create a function with the name something big, and we assume that this function will perform an expensive calculation. The only thing that I will be adding within it is a log, which will show when it's executed. I'm using it so that I keep track when that function is called. I also want to return something from that function, which I will render to the user interface. Now I need to call the function within the component, and if I try to create a React element of it and render that result, we see that we render the UI element. It means that it returned the string, and it also console the executed word. If I click increase and decrease, you see that it keeps calling the function. The UseMemo Hook, it's mainly used for these kind of things, just to avoid repeating the same calculation. Now, if I use UseMemo, wrap it within a function, and pass an empty array, and if I reload my page, the do something function is executed once, which is on the first render, which makes sense. And when I click increase and decrease, the value, the execution has been memorized, so it doesn't repeat the same execution. This was the end of this tutorial. I hope you enjoyed it. Please leave some comments in the feedback section, since I'm interested to see your opinions around it. If you think that it might be better to cover another topic, include that one on the comment as well. Until next time, enjoy your day and speak to you soon. Thank you.